tragedy plus time equals comedy. If you really look at true comedy, most comics are talking about the painful stuff that happened in their lives. That's the beauty of comedy, because it's really a place of transforming that pain into catharsis and healing.
When you don't see a leader recognize the positive, give clarity, lead, negativity will absolutely take over and envelop all of it.
If you've ever dealt with someone who is a narcissist, it is always somebody else's fault. And that is what I really try to convey within the Inversity methodology. But the idea behind what I do and the work within the Inversity umbrella, it's also about personal development and leadership and owning your greatness, not as arrogance, but as your birthright.
Before we jump into this episode, I'd love to invite you to be a part of the community where you can listen to more content to help you be a smarter, stronger, and better equipped, successful leader. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button. I would love and appreciate your support. It's amazing to me to watch the community grow and read all of your comments each and every week. I can't wait to go on the journey with you. Thank you so much, and it means the world to me. Welcome to the Impact Driven Leader podcast with your host, me, Tyler Dickerhoof. Today, I'm joined by my friend again, Karith Foster. She's back again. Thank you so much for being back. Let me give you a little description of who Karith is. If you haven't listened to the previous episode, she is a diversity engagement specialist, creator of the groundbreaking Inversity. She is also a humorist. She's a mother. She's a TV and radio personality. She is a friend. She has a beautiful, wonderful smile. Karith, thanks for being here.
Oh, Tyler, what a treat to be back with you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
So we were just talking about relationships, okay? And one thought that I had, and you're like, Tyler, we need to record this. I'm so glad we did, is one thought I had this person share is, and now I remember, is my friend was sharing about taking care of yourself. And he goes, I need a mental health day, or I need to take care of myself. And he goes, that's great until it comes at the expense of others. As a parent, I'm a parent, you're a parent. If all of a sudden my mental health day comes at the expense of I'm not going to get up, make sure my kids are taken care of, get to school, whatever else, that's a problem. Now, sometimes I need a mental health day so I can do those things, but it needs to come in complement rather than expense. And that's kind of what I gathered from that. So I wanted to share that with you. We're jumping in mid-conversation, but...
We are jumping in.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So I'll share something with you, very personal, that I have not made public or shared with many people who know me. I have been in excruciating pain for probably 4 years, but excruciating the past 2 years. I have been walking with a cane. Now it's the problem area is my left hip, even though the right hip is probably a little more damaged, but the left hip has been compensating so much, right? And I have been avoiding getting a hip replacement.
Why?
For what reason? So there was a little minor ego. Right?
Okay.
Minor ego. And I say that because, I'm too young to get a hip replacement. I shouldn't, but it was also, they say you can only get 2. Maybe that was back in the day when the surgeries weren't quite as good, but they don't want to be that invasive to your body that much. The technology has certainly changed. And maybe there is a little more ego, but this idea of I want to heal it myself. I want to fix it myself. Like, I'm a big naturopathic person. I'm big into holistic. I had my babies in water. And I've heard of these people doing things to, I know there are multiple cures for cancer. So I'm like, this is a hip. We can regrow cartilage. We know we can regrow bone. I just need to find the right tools to do this so I don't have to do the surgery. For some reason, surgery was the last thing I wanted to do. I'm not afraid of going under. I've had surgery, an appendectomy. I've had, when I was little, they had broke my arm. But it was this, I want to prove to myself how strong I am, that I can fix it myself because I'm a fixer. And that's how I've probably gotten into a lot of problems in my life, is trying to be the fixer, including relationships, right?
I shared earlier with a podcast with you that I just did. It was phenomenal. I'm going to share another one with you. It's actually going to release tomorrow. The time this comes out, already come out, from a friend of mine who went through much the same experience. And so remind me to share that with you. I'll tease it a little bit here. If you're listening right now, go back and listen to my conversation with Amberly Lago. That will be very insightful, especially what Karith just shared there, because what you just shared is not unique to you. And as I had that conversation with her, and we talk about, and obviously you're a diversity, like this world of like, should I say we're trying to prove our value when the rest of the world is saying, I'm not sure you really have value because you're not in the container that I expect, but I have to look a little bit below the surface. And so that's the world that I see in kind of this inclusionary business, whatever else. But what you just said to me is the central point. Is we're all trying to figure out, if I'm vulnerable, do I devalue myself?
Yeah.
That to me is a real question.
Yeah. And the irony is, and I don't know if this is what you do, but I preach vulnerability. I mean, look, you can't be a stand-up comedian and not be vulnerable.
You can't be a leader.
That is the most vulnerable art form that exists. It is all you, your face, your words, your body, your thoughts, for other people's complete acceptance or complete rejection. So I know vulnerability, but for some reason, when it comes to me, I'm the exception to the rule, right? As we all do to ourselves.
There's exceptions to our vulnerability. I'm willing to be vulnerable here or there, but not over there. And I think that comes from, what are people going to think if I really, if all of a sudden I admit I can't take care of myself. I can't, that expectation that you can be this or that or the other thing. What if they find out if I really can't? Are they going to think less of me? That's the challenge that every one of us struggle with, no matter what container, male, female, whatever else, whatever gender, it does not matter, whatever race. That is a universal human truth I believe we all struggle with.
And that's why we either power through, right, and become the pack mules and take it all on and destroy ourselves from within, or every day becomes a mental health day and we collapse into it.
So with what we're dealing with right now, and you shared a lot of what you're dealing with as a person, and what you've shared with me is not different than a lot of people listening. It's not different than a lot of people that we work with. It's not different than, the people that are listening, the executive, the manager, the leader. There's people dealing with that every day. Challenges, real world challenges. And yet we're also in a world where we're trying to reestablish, what does this idea of inclusivity really mean? When I share that, and as you smile, how do you feel like those worlds come together?
Well, there's such a tie-in, right? But believe it or not, it may seem abstract to many, but there's such a tie-in, because when we think of inclusion now, of course, we couple that with belonging, right? But here's the rub. We can have all the pizza parties, we can put up all the ping pong tables, we can do all the date nights, and you cannot make another person feel like they belong to something, to a group, to an organization. You can lay out all the invitations and make it inviting, yes, but you cannot make another person feel like they belong. This is where we have to do the self-work. Most people don't even feel like they belong to themselves.
Oh, that's deep.
I
I wish it was laughable.
let's go.
I
Put
wish
on
we
your
were
oxygen
laughing like
mask.
that was like a punchline, right? We're at the comedy club and that's a punchline, but it's not.
No, it's not. It's a harsh reality that is one of those things that people are like, well, how do I do that? How do I fix it? Well, you can only fix yourself. You can only work on yourself. All these billions of dollars these companies are spending on DEI, right? Well, we got to make everybody feel like they're part of it. Well, wonder why it's not working? Because it's not just a one-way street. It's not a two-way street. It's a 6-lane highway.
Is this fair to say you can't mandate acceptance?
Correct.
But yet we've tried to do that in society, politically, through organizations. We've tried to mandate, I am going to force you to accept, as opposed to seeing it from a different angle and saying, why don't we? Or what would it mean to accept myself and accept others? And let's practice that. Because once we do that, well, then I no longer see the grand differences. I start to see the connectedness, the places where we relate, the relatedness. That's the word I was looking for, relatedness.
Yeah. And I'm not going to take us off track with this, but this was a thought I had.
We're perfectly on track. This is all
I wrote an article, but I was thinking of, again, and so that's the train we want to be on, right? The track we want to be on, with getting people to this really healthy place, relationally, personally, psychologically, but then you get thwarted by the people who are in DEI, who are the narcissists. And I've been making this connection lately of narcissism and DEI, another reason why it's not working. And there are so many ridiculous similarities.
This is what I love about life, is life gives us the answers once we start looking.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Narcissism and DEI. I can't wait for that podcast title.
I'm writing an article. I'm going to do a webinar on it. I just decided this 2 days ago because it just dawned on me. The gaslighting, right? The making claims sometimes that someone did or said something that they didn't do, or they didn't mean it that way, but it fits the narrative of the narcissist, aka the person who wants to be the victim, perpetually the victim. And it takes away from the people who genuinely, authentically are on the receiving end of the nastiness of all the isms, right? There is the spin doctrine, of course, that kind of falls into that. Hold on, I wrote this down. I've got it. Oh, I turned my phone off.
You just go ahead and turn on. We got some time here. This is good stuff. I want you to dig into it because this is hot. I have questions. I have all those things, but this is real world.
Oh no, this is very real world, and it's very current. One of the other things I was thinking of is it also, again, the victimization. If you've ever dealt with someone who is a narcissist, it is always somebody else's fault. There is never accountability. There is never culpability. There is never an ownership of agency. And that is what I really try to convey within the Inversity methodology. And Inversity, yes, it is a reframing of diversity, but the idea behind what I do and the work within the Inversity umbrella is that it's also about personal development and leadership, right? And owning your greatness, not as arrogance, but as your birthright, as your God-given right, as a human being on this planet, that no one else can absolve you of your power.
Which to me is regardless of gender, of race, and yet so much of diversity and what you bring up earlier in all the isms is not on surface level or black and white, because there's so many undercurrents. And, whether it's me as a white man, you as a woman of color, it's hey, we're not different in a lot of rooms because of what we're facing, yet it may be different. But the challenges that we face sometimes are actually more similar than others, because if I walk into a room and I'm the only male, which I've been in those rooms, it's quickly either you have this expectation or, oh, we're going to set the record straight. And that happens the same for women of color. It doesn't, and to blanket it as saying is the diversity has to look like this does more to undermine the entire process than it does to actually help people.
110%.
But am I allowed to say that as a white man?
Yes, you are. And I second that. But here's the thing. Guess what? Anyone who is a narcissist is going to hear only that you're a white man talking about an issue you really have no business talking about. And Karith, is somebody who's just been duped by the system. She's the sellout. She's the Oreo. She's the, Uncle Tom, whatever BS nonsense label, right? Because that's also what narcissists like to do. They like to give people labels and call people names without any foundation, because it's like a last resort jab. Like, they can't have rational conversations. Like, that's the thing. And I didn't realize this until I was in my own personal relationship with a narcissist. Like, I didn't understand why we would go in these circles, in these arguments, and there was never a resolution. There was never an owning of, okay, I did this and you did this. It was always one-sided, right? So then I started to feel like I was crazy. And maybe I did do all these horrible things. Maybe I am a bad person. Like, and so then and I see this happening a lot in the corporate world, where people are afraid to talk to each other now. They're afraid to speak up. This affects not only people's personalities, their personal space and health. This affects productivity. This affects the company's bottom line. Like, people want to, push off DEI as like a fluff extra thing. We don't need it. Well, you don't need it the wrong way. You need it the healthy way.
And I want to stop right there, like the healthy way. What you said earlier was part of it, and this is what I grasped, part of it has nothing to do with the outward, it's all the inward. And so part of what I gather from what you've said, and I know we've talked about this before and agree on, is the great way to embrace diversity, right? To have all of that is actually be inward and say, help me identify my inside. Because once I clarify that, then whatever I see outside changes. Is that fair?
That is 100%. You just said it in a different way than other people have been saying it. The most amazing gurus have been saying it for a while. Wayne Dyer, he was the first person I heard it from. I know he got it from somebody else, but when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you see yourself, the way other people see you changes as well, and the way you see the outside world. So it's not, as I say, it's not hard work, it's heart work, right? But it's not easy work either, because it takes acknowledgement, it takes commitment, it takes being open, it takes self-reflection, which is never easy. It's always so much easier to make it somebody else's fault.
That's the piece that I think has happened in so many organizations, in so many, I would say, ideologies. Hey, the way to fix this is make it someone else's problem. Because if we can point out how it's this other group's problem, well, then it's never our problem. We're going to force it on others, make them fix it, and then everything's perfect.
Pass the buck. Yep.
You shared earlier the relationship, the connection between narcissism and, DEI, what's going on in the executive boardroom. As we talk about those connections, we talk about kind of this unwinding in so many organizations of the DEI training. Do you believe in kind of in this context, do you believe it's them identifying we're doing it wrong and we need to look at it differently? Or do you see it as, oh, I tried that, now I'm just going to go back to what I was doing?
So I think it's multi-pronged here. And actually, it's so funny that you said this. So I did got to my notes. And one of the things that narcissists do is they behave all very altruistically. Well, I'm doing this for the good of, I'm standing up for, I'm upset to fight for these people, when maybe they're not even part of that group, right? We've seen those folks, right? I think when we're talking about executives, sometimes the people I work with that I gravitate toward me know there's an issue. They want to solve it. There are some executives out there who are like, well, this isn't my problem because I'm not diverse, because they've been told they weren't diverse now for decades because of how DEI has been done, which is ridiculous, because we're all diverse, because we all bring something different to the table. So that narrative, that line of diversity is bunk now. And hopefully it's being debunked as we even speak, but there's still people who are like, well, no. We have to stick to this playbook.
Yep. We need to have, the different slots filled. We need to have, this group, we need to make sure every group is represented. That's how we're going to be diverse.
Correct. And then there are the people that are like, okay, well, I don't think it's going to work, but we'll try it because we need to look right. We need to have the optics. We need to say put the,
Well, this is in our mission.
Good college try. Right. And then when it doesn't work, behind the scenes, they're kind of like, I knew it wasn't going to work. I told you. But what they've done is made a chief diversity officer the black guy in HR, the gay woman, the Latino person. But then did you give them support financially? Did you give them support emotionally? Did you give them a leadership team? Did you give them direction? Or you just gave them a really nice 6-figure salary and said, all right, you do this now, and you push them into the deep end of the pool?
Here's where I would enter in is, just because it's termed one of the minority groups, does that mean they actually have this skill set to be able to help and walk people through it? Or is it just it's kind of like this. I love sports, right? And I'll be honest, like if you go through, I thought about this. So my son's a kicker, right? And this is just a racial observation. It is what it is. You know how many minority kickers there are in college and sports? Like not very few. There's a few Asian in the NFL. There's a black punter. Other than that, it is mostly white guys. That's just an observation. I have a son as a kicker, and it's like, well, is that wrong? Or is it just happen to be that those people have to have the skill set, the desire, they want to do it? Does it mean they're wrong in that there's the exclusionary process? Or is that just the way it is? I don't know. I just wonder. It was one of my thoughts that I had. I don't know a difference. Like when it comes to someone kicking the ball that has the ability to kick a ball, I don't think it matters, right? And I come back, why I share that is because now all of a sudden we've said this person has to look like this to fulfill this role. But it's like, do they have to?
Do they have to?
Like maybe it's actually...
Yeah, no, we have to challenge that. We have to challenge, look, we all have an idea. When someone says, picture a doctor in your head, what do you see? Just instantly.
Like an old white man.
Yeah, in a lab coat, probably, right?
Yeah.
With some glasses.
That was my childhood pediatrician.
Yes, of course. So we do that because that's just what we've been taught, what we've seen. And so the work within the DEI space is to get people to reimagine what else is out there. I mean, most people had never seen in America a middle-class Black family until The Cosby Show.
Okay.
Which is now nowhere to be found.
I mean, for other reasons.
For other reasons. But it's like, but there have been other people who've done scandalous things.
Yeah, of course.
And,
do we need to go through the list?
Right. But it's one of those things. And so all of this is a reframing of how we see others and how we see ourselves. Using a bunch of different modalities right now.
Okay.
I'm actually getting acupuncture. Okay. I'm seeing some body healers, some energy folks. I'm shifting things because I have resigned myself to get the surgery. Okay. I will do that. But I also know I kind of have to get some things into place to do that. So I'm just seeing how this work goes a little bit. Okay. And then I also needed to wait till I wasn't traveling. Yeah. And I could, even though they say you're up and walking the next day, they want you doing stuff. I just, with everything, the separation, the kids, I wanted to be able to handle things and not, big word for me is burden. Be a burden on anyone.
Where has that stemmed from?
I'm working on that. I'm working on that. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of stuff is rooted in childhood, right? I grew up as a very sick kid, very sick, which is why physical asthma, allergies. Okay. I was allergic to everything. I still am. I'm allergic to the cold. Like if I get cold too quickly,
my wife would say that. That's a joke. She's allergic to the cold. She would say that.
Right. My ex-husband would call me a tropical fish. Oh. Because I am allergic to and even fish. I'm allergic to fish. Like if fish is cooking in the room too close to me, if I'm at a fancy dinner and everyone orders a salmon, I might as well just leave then because the smell will start to make my throat itch and close. It's ridiculous.
Psychological response.
Yeah, but I don't even there'll be times when I'm allergic to tree nuts. So I'll eat a cookie being like, oh, what a lovely cookie. Not thinking that it's just a regular cookie. And if it's made with almond flour, that's not psychological. Like that's my body knowing totally. It's being invaded by something. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Get that. But I mean, it's so many of the, we are the most allergic country in the world. And so much of it has to do with not only a lot of our eating habits, but as well creating it through, childhood, those areas. Like, and you can't debunk both of them. There is an actual physical, yes, absolutely, but then there is a brought about between choices, whatever else, and it's dissecting that is impossible, but yet it's also easy to identify and recognize it's real. But
Oh,
understanding
without question, without question. And what has set your body up to respond that way? Like, what environments have you been introduced to, right? Psychologically, emotionally, chemically, to allow those things, reactions, right, to happen. And so going back to feeling a burden, my mom had to, the other day she said something to me, and she didn't mean it in a way to make me feel bad, but she's like, "You are so lucky your kids are healthy." She goes, I mean, the nights she spent just trying to keep my lungs open, keep me breathing. I mean, I was a kid who took a nebulizer to school, right? I got allergy shots for 13 years of my life till I started having reactions from them. I was on medication, I was on steroids, and that's also partially why my hip is the way it is, because prednisone can cause premature osteoporosis. So, I am now in the mode of thanking my body, but I think in the back of my mind, I've always felt like I was a burden on my mom and my parents financially because of my illness. And so my job then was to excel and to repay them and also not ever be a burden to anyone else.
How did that, as you're looking back and you're identifying, how did that create the wonder, but also the circumstances where you're at now?
Okay, so if I can just be fully transparent, all of this has just happened within like the last 72 hours. That realization for me, I guess as we say in the South, that come to Jesus
You
meeting with
remember
myself.
we were supposed to do this like a week or two ago? None of
Yes, we
these
were.
things would have ever been known, and man,
They would
they're
not have
great
been
things.
brought up. No, sir. They would not have been brought up. So that's a great question that probably requires a little more reflection. But what I can say off the cuff is that it has certainly set the stage for my taking on as much as I have, for my feeling the need to. And there's also so many components, right? First child, first daughter, just personality type, right? Type A personality, perfectionist in recovery.
Yeah.
So there's so many factors. Years ago, I did something called Landmark. Have you heard of Landmark?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did all 3 of the series, and some people don't like it. They're like, "Oh, it's cult. It's based on a cult." It's because it came from Est or something back in the 70s. But I found value in it, and for me, it was just this amazing, incredible weekend of personal development. And I really, obviously not taking from them, but taking what I got from it, I try to incorporate those same kinds of epiphanies for the people that I work with in the leadership seminars that I conduct and the programs and the workshops. But there was an exercise in the very, very beginning, and it was about basically an event that happens in your life, either between the ages of 3 and 4, 9 and 10, or maybe teenage years. And it's significant enough to set you on this path. You recall this. And the idea behind it is, well, there's what happened, and then the story we create around what happened. And my first thought was, it was when my brother was born. Now we're about 4 years apart, 3 to 4 years apart, almost exactly. And I thought, oh, well, I wasn't enough. I'm not enough. They needed to have another one. And so I have to prove now that I'm enough. I love my brother. I mean, he was like my baby, right? So it wasn't like I was angry or mad. I named him before he was born. I would sit on my dad's stomach and rub my mom's belly. I remember doing this. Like, I was so excited to have a baby. And, but I still created that story. Now, further down the line, I'm realizing, thinking back to this, oh my God, I've been not enough in my life for how many years now? And was it rooted in that experience? And of course, what they do in Landmark is they say, now, okay, so if a 3 or 4-year-old told you weren't enough, would you believe them? And would you believe them forever? And would you base everything that you do on what this 3 or 4-year-old told you or kept telling you? And the answer is no, of course not.
But as adults, we live, we lead, we operate in organizations like that every single day until, like you just mentioned, we either have the training or the revelation to understand, oh no, that's all a lie. Now, it may be rooted in some truth, an element of truth at some way, somehow, right? But is that truth a reality 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years later? Or was it a truth in the moment that really doesn't apply anywhere else, but we want to hold on to that?
Because the truth was, my parents had another child because my dad was an only child and he didn't want me to be an only child. And my mom wanted to see if she could have a girl and a boy. That was it. That simple, that clear cut. And I took that and I mauled it and manipulated it and twisted it until I wasn't enough. And that was my theme for most of my life.
For how long?
Probably, I mean, a good several decades.
Okay.
You know, not that I felt like I didn't add up or what, but it was the motivation for being accomplished, right? It took on a life of its own. It was never this like, I'm not good enough, I'm a bad person, I deserve, to be shunned. It wasn't that not enough. It was I have to keep succeeding. I have to keep excelling. I have to be the best. I have to get the straight A's. I have to win. I have to show and prove that I am enough to myself, not for anybody else.
As I sit here and I think, and again, I understand this is all fresh, right? You've shared that with us. In what ways do you think that informed your comedy, your work with, in adversity? We're just sitting, we're just having a conversation, right? I don't expect you to know, but I just want you to think and speculate. How has that informed what you do?
So I'm sure you've always heard the analogy of tragedy plus time equals comedy, right? And growing up sick most of the time, I mean, I used to miss an average of 40 to 60 days of school a year. That's a lot. I didn't really think about it that way because that was just my normal, right? We all have our normal. There were things that happened that I talk about in my book, You Can Be Perfect, You Can Be Happy, and now I also found out there could be a reason why I was having ideations of not wanting to be on the planet anymore. Prednisone can do that to you. Prednisone is a horrible drug that will keep you alive, but has terrible adverse effects. And so psychologically, emotionally, I put on a ton of weight.
Which prednisone helped. Yeah.
Yeah. I was a teenager,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't help things. And I changed schools to be in a school where there were more Black students because I thought, well, maybe this is where I'll fit in. This is where I'll really feel
Remind me where you grew up.
So I grew up in Plano, Texas, where I'm back here now. I go between here and New York. And because it is a great place to raise kids, it really is. But it was very, in the 80s and 90s, not diverse at all. I mean, I joke in my act about it having the ethnic diversity of a Klan rally, right? I starred in an all-white production of the play A Raisin in the Sun. And that's actually true. Like, that legit happened. There were, and this is not even a joke, there were 1,200 people in my graduating class. That was the largest in the state of Texas that year. 12 of us were Black. Okay. We were literally like 1%. Like, that was it. And so I joke about these things in my act, but it was a pain point, right? But the irony was when I'd gone to the other school where there were more Black students and I thought, oh, I'll feel like I fit in. And I'd never been bullied before in my life until then. And I had people being mean to me and tell me I wasn't Black or Black enough, or like really made me question again, you're not enough. Right? So we all have these not enoughs that show up at different times in our lives. And I could have gone the route of like doubling down on my blackness, right? And wearing the dashiki and the, and I did have the little African pendant thing that was in the 80s. And I had my hair in braids because it was also easier, but I wasn't making a statement with it. I could have done that. But instead I was just like, but that's not all of who I am. And that doesn't feel authentic. I wasn't denying my blackness. Like how can I? You can't change your skin color. You can identify however the hell you want apparently these days, but you can't change your skin color.
Well, I mean, some people can try.
You can. Okay, you can bleach, I guess, and you can tan and you can dye and you can tattoo.
But in the grand scheme of things, are you masking or are you revealing?
Exactly. So my comedy comes from these pain points, right? Which all comics do. I mean, if you really look at true comedy, most comics are talking about the painful stuff that happened in their lives. Most really good comedy is about the terrible atrocities that happen across the board. That's the beauty of comedy, because it's really a place of transforming that pain into catharsis and healing. And that's what makes me so sad when people don't get it, when people get offended.
Or we get into the age of almost taming down comedy because we're afraid to offend. It's like, but part of that is very, as you mentioned, if you think about the great comedies in, previous ages, a lot of it was really going through the atrocity of the world to point it out and saying, hey, is this really, is this what life is about?
Yeah. So it informed my comedy in that way, and that was my channel. That was now I always say, I was never the class clown. I was the straight A student, even with missing school as much as I did. I was the goody two shoes. I was the dork in cool kids clothing.
Trying to prove yourself.
Yeah. Trying to fit in, but also trying to prove myself. And but I loved comedy because I could see what they were doing with it. I could see what was happening in the minds, and I love to solve puzzles. And comedy is really a puzzle. How do I take this topic and either extrapolate on it and take it to a whole new level, or take something really complex and break it down so that everybody can get it and enjoy it? And this ties back to what we were talking about in the very beginning of this conversation with their universal experiences. Doesn't matter your ethnicity, your gender, your sex, your race, your religion. There are universal human experiences that tie us together. And that's what comedy gets to do, if you let it.
But also, as we've talked about, when we look at that in an organization, in acceptance and inclusion and, value-based, that has no color, it has no ethnicity. And to me, it's getting to that point, and it's the way to get to that point. And we've talked about this before, and we talked about your work previously. That's what's great that I see about it, because it's about the inside work. It's about, hey, all right, let's laugh about all the things that are going on because they're laughable, and let's really focus on reality, what we can do to actually focus on what are we trying to accomplish in a big way, an impactful way. And yet our society is saying, and we're still finding people that fight against it.
Comedy is making fun of the absurd. What is more absurd than hating someone because their skin is a different color? What's more absurd than trying to fight someone or hate someone because they love differently than you? They're attracted to somebody that's the same sex. Like, what is more absurd than that? If they're not bothering you,
what candidate they're going to vote for?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing.
Come on. And now if we can go there, let's take this. Because I don't have the answers, but I just want this audience to know that I think there is a spiritual component to this. And I'm not afraid to say that anymore. I think there's a spiritual component. And by that, I mean, there is a good and an evil in the world. There are energies that are operating from these places. Now, some people say, well, energy just is, and we transmute it to whatever. That's fine, right? But I think there are people, there are beings that feed off of the negativity and the anger. And there's a term called loosh, right? That is, it's more common when you're talking about like satanic type stuff, demonic things, but it's like when people get scared, right? They release something energetically that feeds this nastiness. And that is why we got to turn off the TVs. Yes, we got to stay informed. We got to see what's happening in North Carolina and Florida. We got to take care of each other. We can't look the other way, but we also can't just be like every night, what's that candidate saying about my candidate? What's this? That's the bad stuff.
John Gordon in his book, The Energy Bus, the energy vampire, right? And you know, those energy vampires feed off of that. And to me, it getting back to maybe even times when I succumbed to some of that was my own frustration of not understanding where my positive energy came from, where I could find the positivity, where I had value, where I had place, where I had the ability to make an impact. And if this is where I would speculate in saying, if we're not doing that from a leadership, from an organizational point of view, helping people find that place, we inadvertently feed the negativity.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I love
Right?
the connection of sports. And I see that in my I have 3 kids in high school, 2 boys playing high school football. And when you don't see a leader recognize the positive, give clarity, lead, negativity will absolutely take over and envelop all of it. And the same happens in top 50 boardrooms. It happens in nonprofits. It happens anywhere there are people. The same thing happens.
And it's like a virus and it's pervasive, or like a parasite, which is also, you know, what people like are now realizing are viruses. they're parasites that are coming in and taking things over. They're taking over the body. They're hijacking the good genes, hijacking the good energy, hijacking the good people.
As you're having conversations, as you're doing your work, as you're getting the opportunity to sit in front of people and guide them, how are you broaching all of this right now?
From a place of genuine authenticity, probably for the first time ever. Not as I'm here to save you, I'm here to help you. I'm navigating this space with you. Because I don't have all the answers, but I got some pretty damn good clues.
You have experiences.
Yes.
You have experiences that, to me, when shared collectively, we start to see it differently and like, oh, then we have the ahas.
And I've got gifts. I have the gift of, I'm getting the gift of discernment. That's coming in really good right now. But I do have the gift of master communication. And I have the gift of being able to speak to people in a way that allows them to feel like they're part of the conversation. I also have the gift of speaking to people in a way that just gives them permission to be in a neutral space, to hear the message without being on the offense or the defense, and to have a nuanced perspective, which maybe they'd never had before because someone that they had brought in was just there to lecture and give information and dispel, like, whatever, you know.
Walk them through the 8 points of DEI and whatever.
Yeah. You like, we want to make things clinical, and I get it. We want to make things easy. We want to check the boxes because, you know, well, we don't have anybody in our office who really does that. So let's bring in, this person says they're an expert. And they come in, you know, with their points and their charts and their PowerPoint and their, you know, this is what you need to do now, and this is why you should feel bad about this, and this is why you should go, you know, hang your head in a corner and never say this again, never use this language, never. We're human beings. We cannot put those kind of restraints and constraints on ourselves, but we can teach people how to navigate when they misspeak, when something comes up that's uncomfortable, and remind them that the discomfort is temporary. But guess what? Growth comes from that.
the growth that you're going through right now, as you just mentioned that, right? The growth that you want to help organizations with, the growth that you're seeing personally as a mother, as a parent. How are you exposing and projecting that? How do you anticipate to project that for your kids?
Right now, because of some personal things that are happening, I cannot disclose everything that I would like to. I would love to be like, well, this is why this happened, and this is why this is our living situation right now, and this is why mommy says she can't tell you when she wants to. So all I can do is lead by example. And one of the examples I have to lead by, the kids pick up on stuff. They're not stupid. So they have to see how I treat myself. They have to see how I hold myself, how I carry myself, how I show up. And that's how I have to be an example to them. That's how I have to show them right now. Because even if I had the language, I don't know if they're ready to hear it. Their brains aren't developed enough quite yet for all of it. They're 10 and 11. What they need to know is that they're loved, that they're cared for, that I got them. I got their back, and I'm there to help them however I can through whatever they need to do. And maybe I'm not always the only person they can speak to. So I make the community, right, a big part of this too.
In my opinion, take that 60-second, soundbite, what you just said. That's every leader, every executive, every CEO, every person that is in a place of impact. If you hold on to that exact same mentality, you will serve people at the greatest capacity that you are able to serve people. And to me, that's the great complication, is we make leadership different. But all you said is, I can't give you all the information right now, but I care about you. I will give you as much as I can when I can. And at the end of the day, my actions better match my words, or I have to understand that you're going to exit that door. And if leaders hold on to that, whether we're talking about, the employee demographics, or if we're talking about anything when it comes to advancement, development, leadership, if we hold on to that, our organizations, our world would change overnight. But it's hard.
It is. It's challenging. It's challenging.
As you're walking through that, what's the hardest right now for you as you're walking through that in the moment?
The hardest right now is wanting to disclose more information than I know they can handle. It's like I don't know if you would watch soap operas when you were a kid, or
I
with
did.
your grandma when
What'd
you're
you
homesick.
watch?
Well, my grandma got me on Days of Our Lives and Young
Okay.
and the Restless.
See, I was General Hospital.
Oh, and GH, yes.
Yes.
Well, I also worked for ABC for a while
Yeah.
because I was at The View.
Yeah.
So I had to, the TV was on all day.
Yeah. Port Charles. I don't know if you ever.
Oh, yeah.
Was the spin-off
please.
of
Are you kidding me?
General Hospital.
I used to think they were my friends because I would see them
That
in
was
the hallway.
always on right when I got home. So I would get home and I would grab a snack before I had to go outside and do chores on the farm. And so I would watch General Hospital, and I think my mom was watching or something. And so that's when I would watch. Right. Yes. Uh-huh. Okay.
I love it. So yeah. But remember in the soap operas, so as the audience, we would see what was happening. Like if somebody was doing something sinister, or if somebody had a secret that they couldn't share because they'd made a promise to someone else, but then they'd be engaging with the person who needed to know that information. And you'd be like, just tell them. We know. Just tell them. Let them know. It'll change everything. It'll make it all better. That's how life feels like right now. I want to tell them. I want to give them explanations for things that it's not going to make it better right now because they don't have the capacity for it. So it may be years before they find out certain things that are going on. And they may be never. It may be never. And I have to be okay with that. That's hard. That's really hard for me as a communicator, as someone who wants to make sure that they understand, mommy's not doing this to hurt you or to disrupt our family or anything with our lives. I'm doing this to save you. I'm doing this to give you better options and to make you, have a different perspective so that you maybe don't repeat the same thing that I did.
I think again, tying it into your work, tying it into leadership, tying it into relationships, coming back to the very first thing I said, as I recounting my friend that shared that, is that work you're doing, you have to do, and you have to do separately, but it is absolutely serving. If I think about the work of, developing strong organizations, I believe the greatest way to develop strong leadership and strong organizations is identifying, conversing, and having conversations about values. In my experience, that's where I've seen transformation personally. In when we do that, we start to see things in a different way that start to help paint a picture that it's like I can accept and understand what I don't know and understand because it's part of the puzzle. But yet, instead of trying to create clarity, I can have certainty that I won't be able to see clarity because I understand the values and the reasoning that I don't need to push and dig and try to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking about the DEI landscape and all these organizations that they're constantly trying to create certainty in an unclear world, in an unbalanced world, that if we actually went through the process of, again, values, that it would all work itself out. But it's not easy and it's not clear, but it gives it certainty when we come from that perspective, as opposed to the back end saying everything's wrong. Here's how we're all going to fix it.
How much do we sell on that, right? This guaranteed way to lose weight, guaranteed way to have a healthy relationship, guaranteed way
Everyone
for a
wants a guarantee on the box. Go back to Tommy Boy. He's like, just slap that guarantee on the box. You don't have to shove your head up a steer's ass. Just right there in the box.
Yeah. And there's no guarantees. And that's hard for some people to hear and to, one of the most fascinating things about this journey, right, of discovering what true narcissism is, not the buzzword, the actual personality disorder, is that hearing that there's not really a cure for it. Like it just is. And when you are a problem solver, when you are a fixer, which most leaders want to be and are, it is very challenging to not have a pinpoint date of this will be done then, or this will be fixed then, or this will be resolved then. And so but if we're up against an obstacle of the narcissism world, right, where there isn't a reason for why that person keeps digging away at you, because they just do, there's nothing that can be fixed about them. It's just part of who they are. Their brains aren't wired the same way ours are, right? That's been one of the most challenging things, is understanding that there are things in the world that we're not going to understand and we're not going to be able to fix. But in space of that, we work on ourselves. In space of that, we control the only thing we can, which is us, how we respond, how we react, how we show up.
It's kind of like an organization and someone saying, hey, if we do this training in 6 months, we're going to have a XYZ percentage diversity in our workforce. That's not reality. You can't, again, mandate. You can't mandate someone to change a personality. It'll happen by a process of happening and transformation, not through mandate. I personally believe that, someone with those personalities absolutely can transform, but it's outside of my power. It's outside of your power.
There you go. You just nailed it. It's not within our power. And it's not within their power, I don't think. I think it requires a much greater source to come in. And they have to also want that, though.
And that comes through actual pain and a desire to transform because I want different.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people do it. Some people, I've heard of cases,
Yeah.
but the majority of people don't even want to admit that they're a problem or have a problem or are the problem.
There's a lot of those.
There's a lot of that.
Karith, as we wrap up, where can people learn more about you, your work, your book, all those good things?
Absolutely. So Inversity Solutions is the name of my company. I call what I do Inversity. And I also have a book called You Can Be Perfect or You Can Be Happy. Now, on my personal website, karith.com, Karith, you can take a quiz to see if you're a perfectionist, and if so, what level of perfectionist are you? And you will get a video reply back from me giving you the bad news, but mostly the good news, because I like to be on the optimism side of things and also look at the positives.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everyone watching, listening. Remember to subscribe on YouTube. Hit the little subscribe button, the bell, so you get notified when each new podcast releases. As well, if you're listening to this, please rate and review each episode wherever you're listening to it, so that way more people can find, hear, and discover impactful leaders just like Karith. Until next time, choose to lead with impact.